Hello, welcome to Homeschool Life. My name is Bobby, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the accounting settings, and we're going to talk about how you can customize those for your group. To do this, you need to be logged into your admin website. Once logged in, from the home page, you can access accounting in one of two ways. You can click here or here. When you access the accounting tool, you will be on the accounts receivable listing, and you'll see along the left here a list of all the options, places that you can go within the accounting system. And we're going to actually look at the accounting settings, so we're going to click here. On the accounting settings page, there are four areas that we're going to look at. The first area is called the general settings, right here at the top. The second area is called accounting categories. The third area is called adjustment categories. And the fourth area is called accounts. Let's start at the top and take a look at the general settings. There are only two things that you can update or change in the general settings. The first is your fiscal year start date, and the second is your currency type. The fiscal year for this group is currently set for August 1st. If we wanted to change this, perhaps to July 1st, we would simply click on the drop-down, select the month, click on the day of the month drop-down, and select whatever day of the month we want. To save that, we would click on Update. Notice here, the system indicates that your settings have been successfully updated. Just a few comments about the fiscal year. The primary purpose of the fiscal year is to determine how your invoices and payments are going to display when you go to your invoices or your payments listing. If you want your fiscal year to coincide with a calendar year, you would probably set your fiscal year start date for January 1st. Most co-ops and groups that are related to schooling choose to coincide rather with their school calendar, and in this case, this group chooses to start July the 1st. So the way your invoices would display if you had the fiscal year start date of July the 1st, I pop over here to the invoices listing, is my current fiscal year. Any invoices that are generated from July 1st on will display in this listing as a default. Of course, I can always change that and display all of my invoices by clicking this way. But the default is your fiscal year of the current. And again, that fiscal year setting is within your account settings, and you can change that if you'd like to. Okay, the other option that you can change within general settings is the currency type. If you're a US group, you're probably going to set it for US. If you're a Canadian group, you're probably going to set that for the Canadian dollar. We are a US group here, so we're going to set this back to US dollar. Click on the update. Again, it tells us that the system has been successfully updated, and that concludes the general settings. Now moving down to the accounting categories, to the second area here. These are generally used to coincide with budget categories within your group. There are 5 default categories that are predetermined, including class registration recurring payments, registration and renewals, sign-ups, and other. Each of those is affiliated with a code that you use on your invoices. Rather than having these full names displayed, these codes will display. And the other thing that you'll need to note with the accounting categories are these payment pools, this area here. Okay. There is a video called Accounting Introduction that I highly recommend you watch to gain a total understanding of the payment pools. It's really important that you understand those as you begin issuing invoices so that your funds are collected correctly and that you're able to access your reports and run things the way that you want to. And also, as you set up new accounting categories, you'll need to choose which of the payment pools you want to use, and that's why it's really important for you to have a total understanding of how those work. Okay, so you'll notice down here we have a new accounting category that's been set up by this group, You can set up as many accounting categories as you want to. And again, as I mentioned, these generally coincide with the different budget areas in your group. I'm going to add a new one. The way that I do that is I scroll back up here. I click on this Add Accounting Category icon at the top. It gives me a blank line where I can add a new code and a new name. I'm going to highlight the existing name and delete it. And then I'm going to add a new one. Let's say that we are going to have a senior graduation ceremony later in the year and that the families have to pay a fee to be part of that. So we might want to call this senior graduation. Whoops, we need to spell that correctly. There we go. And maybe we want to give this a code of SRGR. That's just a shortened version of the full name, and this is what we'll display on the invoices. We would need to decide, do we want this to be a full payment or a partial payment category? We're going to leave this as a full payment category, and we need to click on this box here to make this an active category. We have one more step. We have to save it by clicking on this little green diskette. Notice when I do that, I have the message up here, senior graduation successfully created. And if I scroll back down, you can see that the new category that I just created is displayed here. One thing you might note as well is you can move these categories that you created into a different position. Say you want to alphabetize them. You can just drag or click on the arrow here, drag it, and drop it. I'm going to do that again and put it back in alphabetic order. And notice on these two accounting categories, you have a red trash can icon to the right here. That means you can delete the category. You cannot always delete it. You cannot delete these that are predefined, but you can delete the ones that you've defined. And in some cases, that trash can will be missing, and I'll explain in just a minute why that would be and why you could not delete a category. Okay, moving down to the adjustment categories. Like the accounting categories, you have some that are predefined when you activate the system. You have manual refund, canceled, discount, credit, refund, exemption, and miscellaneous. Those are all active categories as a default. Now you can add additional categories if you'd like to. And keep in mind, the adjustment categories are used when you want to add a credit or perhaps a discount into a member's account. I'll talk a little bit about when you can and cannot do that here in just a moment. But in the case of this group, they decided to add an additional category here for an adjustment called Child of Teacher. This is for those times when a teacher has a class and their own students are in the class. Therefore, an invoice would be generated, but there would be no reason for that invoice to be paid because it would be paid to the teacher his or herself who has a child in the class. So this group created this adjustment category so that when that happens, instead of leaving that as an open invoice, they just close it using an adjustment because the student is a child of the teacher. Another adjustment category that some groups add is for a board member. Sometimes there are CoOp memberships that are given to their board members. Let's say that we want to add that category. We scroll back to the top. We click on Add Adjustment Category here. We highlight, delete the one, delete new category name, and change it to whatever we want to call it. Make it active, and save it. And again, we have our new category created here, board member. Now you'll notice this is interesting. This one has a trash can, but this one does not. The reason for that is because at the current time, there are no invoices associated with this new category that we just created, with the board member category. In other words, we have not closed out any of our invoices by applying an adjustment called board member. But in this case, there are invoices out there in the system that have been applied for child of the teacher. So because there are invoices actually attached with that adjustment category, you cannot delete it. And that is the same up here with the accounting categories. Neither one of these two have any invoices associated with them yet. Therefore, you can delete them both. But once you start creating invoices in these accounting categories, once I have some field trip invoices, once I have some senior graduation invoices, I will not be able to come in and delete this anymore because the invoices are tied to those. And just like with the field trips and the senior graduation, I can drag and sort these if I wish to by dragging and dropping. You'll notice that these check boxes here are both highlighted as these are here. If I want to deactivate one of these, I can just click on the box to deactivate it, and then I want to reactivate it by clicking on the box again. Okay, let's move now to the accounts area, which is here at the bottom. This is the area where you define if you want to have separate payment accounts for your invoices within your group. In the case of co-ops, sometimes they wish to set up accounts for each one of their teachers. That's how this group here has it set up. Each of these individuals down here are teachers. They also have two accounts set up. One is called General. The other one is called Cash Only. The General account is set up here to accept PayPal payments. The Cash Only account is set up not to accept either paperless or PayPal. That might be, an example might be field trips. They may not accept PayPal for field trips. They may require people to pay at the door, or they may just have them pay by cash only at their co-op in person. You'll notice that some of the teachers in this case have PayPal ID set up. Two of them do, while the other ones do not. These teachers here do not wish to accept PayPal. So those teachers would be collecting either checks or cash payments, perhaps in the first day of class. And that is defined by each group. So in this area, this is where you will decide and you will set up how do you want to accept payments within your group. If you do not use PayPal or you do not use paperless and you just want to function strictly on checks and cash, you would have none of these would be filled out at all. You might have a general account, but you would have nothing in this PayPal ID field. You can still have within this account, you can still have teacher accounts set up, as this group has many teacher accounts set up that don't accept PayPal IDs. But when your invoices are sorted, you can actually sort by these account names, but you don't have to have anything linked to either paperless or PayPal. If you do want to use PayPal or paperless, this is where you have to come in and set that up. So for example, this group here, the general account, is linked to the PayPal ID here, gracekeepsus@yahoo.com. To add a new account, you're going to scroll up to the top. You're going to say add new account. Let's say that we're going to add a new account for a new teacher. We'll say it's John Doe is the teacher, and he wants to accept payments through PayPal, and so we're going to put in maybe his PayPal ID is johndoe@hotmail.com. And in order to make this active, we have to click on this little box here. If this is the default for the majority of your invoices, you would click here to make it the default. That would not be the case usually with a specific teacher. And you can also hide the PayPal link if you want to. Once I'm finished adding, I click on this disk icon here. It says that I've successfully created the John Doe account. I scroll back down to the bottom, and you'll notice that we now have John Doe listed right here with the PayPal ID that we just set up. This group currently has their default set for the general account. So that means when you create an invoice, it's going to default to this general account, which is linked to this ID, this PayPal ID. You can always change it on any invoice, but this is going to just be the default. Notice that each one of these is showing as an active account. If you want to deactivate one of the accounts, you would just click on the box. To reactivate one that's been deactivated, just click on the box again. And again, as we mentioned above, you have some of these accounts have trash can icons and other ones do not. These two do, but the rest of these don't. And again, that is because there are invoices that are linked to the general account, to the cash only account, to this Barbara Gordon account. But this one for Dawn Hansen, there's never been any invoices generated. So you can delete this category. You cannot delete the other ones because there are already invoices in the system in existence that are linked to those accounts. If you find that you actually do want to delete one of these accounts, you would of course click on the trash can next to the account. The system will ask you if you're sure you want to delete this account, and you would click on OK. You'll see the message that it's been successfully deleted, and of course it will no longer be listed here among the other accounts. I would highly recommend that you try to spend some time thinking about what accounting categories you might need in the system, and also that you consider what accounts you might need within your system before you start generating your invoices, with particular emphasis on your teacher accounts if you're a co-op. And I say this because as students register for classes and the invoices are generated, there will be an account associated with that invoice as it's generated. If it's generated in the general account and you later need for that to be in one of these teacher accounts, you can change that in your class setup, of course, to the new teacher account. However, the invoices that have already been generated will remain in the account that was active when it was first generated. So you'd have to go back to those individual invoices and change the account. So it's best if you can set that up in the beginning the way you want it rather than figuring it out later. If at any point you have questions or you're trying to determine the best way to set up your system, you're welcome to visit the admin home page in the technical support area and create a ticket. In this area, you can request our assistance with a particular problem that you're having, or if you just need to brainstorm and determine the best way to set things up, we'll be happy to help you with that as well. You can also access our Help Center by clicking on this link here. And from here, there's many different areas within the site that you can access help. In the accounting area specifically, there are a number of videos here that are available about specific things. So if you view those videos, sometimes they can be very helpful for you. And as I mentioned at one point, I would highly recommend that you watch the accounting introduction video because it's going to discuss at length with you what the payment pools are, the partial payments versus the full payments, and those are very important, particularly for class registration as you get started. That concludes this video on accounting settings. Thank you very much for watching.